from trade for a bit and talk about the other issue which has been exercising the attention, engaging the attention of pretty much every market participant, which is the extension of trading hours, which has now been deferred till the 4th of January. Anand Tandon of Brics and Anish Javeri of Antique Stock Broking with us now. Gentlemen, morning. Thanks for joining in. Anand, what's your prima facie first cut reaction to this move?
Not good, Udayan. Not necessary, not required, and certainly not with consultation with market participants, unlike what the regulators seem to be saying, or the exchanges seem to be saying.
What do you think will happen before we talk about the reasons, rationale, etc.? Do you think this deferment might or stands a chance of a rediscussion and then eventually not implementing it, or do you think it's a done deal, it's just deferred for a couple of weeks?
Since the exchanges haven't really bothered to take the broker's opinion into consideration, I would imagine that there would be some pressure on them to try and do that, but finally the decision has to be that of the exchange. And unfortunately, I think you can hold this out as one of the glaring problems of having a so-called professionally run exchange, that the key members of the exchange who are impacted by this are the people who are least consulted when making a move as big as this, and for reasons which seem to me completely specious.
Anish, you agree? They're going to do it anyway, despite the barrage of opinion that's been coming in over the past 72 hours?
It's difficult to say what's in their minds, but let's not forget the message has to be very, very clear that these are public platforms for national capital formation. These platforms aid that process. And so any decisions on isolation without keeping in mind how the system is going to cope up with, how is the environment going to cope up with, there are always support systems which are required. And without giving due consideration to that, without taking the market participants into the consideration, very difficult to fathom the fact that such a decision has been taken into consideration. The most important point I would like to make is, where is the pull coming from? We deal with institutions, we deal with insurance companies, mutual funds, HNIs, retail. Who is giving you that push? Who are the participants who are telling you that, okay, go ahead and do this, please, we need more timing? What is it that you're trying to achieve which is not being achieved between 9:55 and 3:30 is the biggest question which is being unanswered. So that's what our view is.
Anand, that's exactly the point. I mean, since yesterday we've been talking about what may have driven the exchanges to do that. Even if you were to step away from that point, in a neutral manner, do you see any benefit achieved to any pocket of the market investing community by having 1 extra hour to trade?
Is that for me, Mithali?
Yeah, for you, Anand.
Well, frankly, no. If the logic is that we need more time, there is no reason why you cannot make it 24 hours or at least 23 hours. So therefore, there is no end to the extension. My argument is that, the only people who would actually benefit from this are people who are day traders. And when I say benefit, means they'll have to spend more time in front of the terminal trying to make trades. Clearly, the investors or any of the people that Anish mentioned, for example, are unlikely to find that they will increase their trading just because the number of hours are more. More likely than not, what will happen is that the time spent, because you're going to spread the same amount of trade or at least similar kind of investment size over a longer period, you may actually have less liquidity for the most part of the day. It reminds me of a story which I'd heard a while back. I don't know if it was true, most likely not. But apparently there was a committee which was formed somewhere to look at market volatility, and they came up with the conclusion that the first half hour and the last half hour of the market are the most volatile. So if you need to control volatility, one of the members suggested that why not shut the market down half hour earlier. We almost seem to be in that kind of Quixotian kind of situation, that you want to make it push it back an hour for reasons which are completely unexplained.
Anish, the thing comes down to the point that you mentioned in your opening remark, that it's becoming a competitive situation between exchanges, and now that there will be, say, 3, 4, 5 exchanges who are vying for business, do you think the regulator, SEBI, or someone else who's looking at, I don't know, Finance Ministry, RBI, needs to look at the issue of ownership of exchanges and the motives which are guiding them to take decisions which are important for platforms like exchanges?
I think these are the very, very pertinent questions that will be asked, because at the end of the day, as I reiterate my point, these are public platforms which aid national capital building, and that is the basic factor why these exchanges are in existence. Hence, anyone who overlooks this aspect and tries to overstep this, I think is not going to be acting in the interest of the nation. The Prime Minister himself has said that he wants financial inclusion. Financial inclusion does not mean that you inconvenience and you completely sidestep the basic participants of any such important activity and take decision in isolation. I think that is not what anyone's debating. So I think that's a basic point, and it's likely to be, in our opinion, it's likely to be a political issue going ahead, that you cannot have such decisions in such isolation being taken by a set of people.
The counter argument to that, Anish, has been that once SEBI opened up the window, it was only a matter of time before some exchange, whether the NSE or the BSE or maybe even the MCX, stepped in and used up that extra time. Would you say now, to some degree, the onus falls on the shoulders of the regulator, i.e. SEBI as well, to go back and, get into dialogue with the broking community and market participants on A, the use of this, on B, whether there are any infrastructural issues that are posed by starting 1 hour earlier?
I think stock exchanges cannot be seen in isolation. Whosoever took the decision, I'm not going to debate on that to go against those decisions. But the point is that let's have a banking system which is in tune. Let's have infrastructure in place which is in tune, in sync with this reality. Let's have Parliament beginning at 8 a.m. Let's start a charity from home. Let's have the bureaucrats in Mantralaya coming at 9 a.m. Why we are not debating that? Let the country start 1 hour early completely. Why in isolation inconvenience the common man? This decision is not going to impact the Tony, South Bombay and Central Bombay banker or broker. Let's face it, the organized players are not going to be impacted by this. It's the common man on which the UPA has been elected is going to be affected. You don't have water, you don't have electricity supply in the fringes of the cities, and you are trying to make his life miserable, further miserable by what has been happening. Who's going to consider that? I think that's the wider aspect. Socio-economical aspects have to be taken into consideration. I can fully understand Singapore is a country where you can start things early because it's a country which has developed, evolved and has a magnificent infrastructure. Tomorrow, if Tokyo starts trading Nifty or any other indices, so do you mean to say that we are going to start at 5 a.m.? These are the pertinent questions that need to be answered.
Anand?